All right, guys, we are back around the fire today. We're calling this the Fireside Rant, because there might be some rantings here today in this episode.
You betcha.
But we wanted to sit down and kind of go through and talk a little bit more in depth about the new Land Cruiser 250 series that we have here in the U.S. These are kind of starting to roll out into the street. We're starting to see more and more of them. People are starting to modify them. There's some parts coming out for these. So we just wanted to sit down, kind of talk about this as a platform, think about some future projects MLO might have with the Land Cruiser 250 series. And we also wanted to talk about, is this really a real Land Cruiser?
I think it definitely has Land Cruiser DNA. I think it follows the suit of the Prado line that we've seen, the 120, the 150, it does make sense, the evolution.
Yeah, I think it's like a baby Land Cruiser, if you will.
Yeah.
Like definitely smaller, scaled down version of the 200 series, smaller motor, smaller size overall.
Yeah.
Bigger than a 4Runner maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit more useful than like a GX 460, of old. And I think, some styling cues that are harkening back, obviously, to like the 60 series.
It's certainly more playful than a full-size Land Cruiser. I mean, they can't really like play around with retro on like the big boy. So they're well, let's try this guy out. And it reminds me of every retro vehicle that, a major manufacturer tries to put together. It looks cool, but I'm sure they couldn't do everything they wanted to. The body styling is pretty decent and kind of has that classic look, but it definitely needs like the aftermarket support and the stuff that Toyota wouldn't do that we can fill in the blanks on.
Back to the topic of, is this a real Land Cruiser? I noticed that these pictures are from Europe, and on the back of the truck you can actually see a Prado badge on it, showing that it kind of falls into the Prado lineup in the rest of the world.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
So there's another look at it. I think they did a good job with all the colors this year, but I'm definitely a fan of kind of the round headlight front ends. I'm not a big fan of those square.
Kind of Tron-esque. I guess if you're not going to modify it, maybe this looks a little bit more like less trying so hard to be retro.
Yeah, it's a little more classy, a little like upscale looking.
If you're going to like give it what it needs, then I think the round headlight's a better look.
Yeah. So there's a comparison of the round headlights. I think it just gives it a much better looking front end.
Yeah.
And there's kind of side by side of the 300 series Land Cruiser that the rest of the world gets and the Land Cruiser that we're getting here in the U.S. So there's kind of a look at the kind of heritage of Land Cruisers, all the different generations. I actually found this pretty cool graphic showing that over the years they've kind of split these up into 3 different categories. There's the station wagon, the heavy duty, and the light duty. So I just wanted to run through kind of the history. We started out with the 40 series, definitely iconic. Everyone knows this body shape. No luxury. Yeah. They're basically tractors inside. And then we jumped up to the
55
Iron Pigs.
Yeah.
Which we never got here in the U.S.
We did.
No, we did actually.
We definitely did.
We definitely got them.
They all rotted away. And the ones that are left are very expensive, or they are Bondo sculptures.
Yep. Then we went to that's actually a 62. And I think they definitely took a lot of inspiration from this when making the new 250. They moved on to the 70 series, which we unfortunately never got in the U.S. And then they bump up to the 80 series, which kind of today is kind of the one that I'd say one of the more desirables.
Yeah.
Especially for wheeling.
Pulling big money now, these things. It's kind of like the first kind of, modern, comfortable, solid axle, e-locker available, 410 gear, like pretty checking of the boxes and still something you could drive.
Then we jump up to the 100 series, which kind of deviates from the 80 series solid axle front end.
Yeah.
They go to a torsion bar setup. Which
Not the favorite.
Not the best.
Yeah.
You get a lot of.
They're great trucks, very reliable, 4.7 liter.
Because I'd imagine if they had a solid front axle in this truck, that they would be even more popular than 80 series.
Yeah.
Because you're getting that.
Or even just like coilovers.
Yeah.
Just something you could more easily lift and control down travel.
So then from the 100 series, they jumped up to the 200, which we've had for a very, very long time here in the U.S. These are great trucks. They're big. They'll run forever. But they were very, very expensive from the get-go. And I believe the starting price was right around $85,000. And adjusted for inflation for like today, that's like $103,000.
Yeah.
But it's top level, top level of the Toyota brand, kind of, price-wise.
Yeah. In the U.S., we now kind of have the 300.
The LX600, right?
Which is basically an LX600. So it's kind of dressed up on display this is kind of the 300 series here in the U.S.
Yeah, just with like a bad
Waterfall
bunch of
grill.
plastic surgery.
Yeah, pretty much.
That can be corrected.
Yeah.
With a lot of steel bumper.
Yeah. So back here to current day, we have the Land Cruiser 250. The base price of those start at $56,000. So that is a huge difference from where the 200 series started 4 years ago. So it kind of makes me wonder, where does that basically 30 grand in difference of starting price, like where did that value go away? Did they get just more efficient creating the trucks? So what do you guys think? And
they're clearly going for higher volume with these. Sure. You know, anybody that knows the 200 series market at the end of it here was like, it was a comically low sales number. Yeah. So, and to that end, you know, having a halo price point, maybe that kind of makes sense. But this is like folks that are maybe getting out of a Wrangler, or they had a Bronco and they want the new latest retro design.
And I think this is going to be really appealing to probably 5th gen 4Runner owners. Mm-hmm. That might want to change it up. Maybe they don't want to get the new 4Runner because the starting price of this isn't far off of what a 4Runner would be.
Yeah. I think what's interesting on this is, you know, we've always had a Lexus version of a 200 series. Mm-hmm. We've always, you know, Toyota usually has like a corresponding Lexus model for every US-based Toyota model. Yeah. We never had that for the GX, and that's what this is, kind of the Prado. Yeah. But there are like a lot of mid-sized Toyota Lexus SUVs now. So like, what happens? What happens to the 4Runner? Yeah. What happens to the Prado? What happens to the GX?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what's interesting to note is, you know, there was a time when the FJ Cruiser and the 4Runner were being sold at the same time, and basically, you know, the FJ Cruiser shared the Prado platform essentially. So you know, this kind of could fall into that category of just being a stretched FJ Cruiser. You know, it's probably going to cannibalize some of the 4Runner sales. Yeah. It'd be interesting to actually like look at Land Cruiser, you know, FJ Cruiser and 4Runner sales, you know, when they were in parallel, and see if that's going to be a good comparison point.
Yeah, the Prado has always been like something interesting here in the States, because we're like, oh, we can put Prado parts on a US vehicle like the GX because it's the same frame and we just cut differently. Yeah. And I always thought that it would be kind of cool to take a Prado front end and put it on a GX, because you'd have something different. And Toyota kind of like was like, well, let's, you know, fill the void of the FJ Cruiser and give you, you know, the Toyota Prado effectively, finally.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of Lexus, Prado, and the 250 Land Cruiser, it's probably a good time to talk about some of the like similarities and differences between the new GX 550 and the 250 Land Cruiser. Mm-hmm. So starting off, the new Land Cruiser 250 is getting the kind of 4-cylinder iForce Max motor that we see in the Tacoma, the kind of higher end Tacoma. Yeah. And then in the GX 550, we're seeing the twin turbo V6. It's kind of out of the Tundra. So those power numbers are pretty darn similar. But I think, what are your guys' thoughts on those two kind of power motor options?
I mean, I wish it didn't come with a 4-cylinder. The 250, but it kind of makes sense that it has to, because the Lexus needs to be, you know, something more.
Right.
So, you know, I think it's just kind of like they're probably going to drive very similarly, just a matter of power output, and, you know, somebody that needs the prestige of the Lexus brand versus kind of like cosplaying retro lifestyle people who kind of are always ready to go outdoors might gravitate towards this.
The new GX and the new Land Cruiser, they basically share the same kind of base frame and platform. So they're calling this new kind of platform with the frame design, they're calling that the TNGAF. If you can keep that straight.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, easy to say, right?
Toyota not giving a F? Is that what that's short for?
Yeah. But basically that platform is shared between the 300 series, the new Tacoma, the new Tundra. It's kind of, they developed this whole platform to kind of streamline everything. So that could be part of the reason why we're seeing a decreased price, is they're kind of getting economies of scale, kind of reducing the price of everything. The kind of base price, cheapest you can get into a new Land Cruiser is for $56,000. That's the 1958 base model. Comparatively, the GX, they're calling the premium, is their base model, and that's starting at $64,000. So there's really only an $8K difference in there.
Yeah.
Only.
Well,
you know.
I mean, yeah.
Still.
seems expensive for this, but reasonable for the GX.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But if you want to kind of step up and get the more off-road features, it might be worth thinking about stepping up into the Land Cruiser or the first edition Land Cruiser, because that's where you're getting the disconnectable sway bars. The base Land Cruiser starts at 62, and then the first edition is jumping up all the way to 75.
Wow.
It's a little bit too much.
Yeah, you're paying that first in money.
First tax.
You're getting like nice kind of more luxury features on the first edition, but for 75 grand, I'd rather jump over to the GX.
First editions don't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, I guess it's some exclusivity, but it's like, wouldn't you want like the second edition after they figured out?
It's like the first guy in the neighborhood with the Cybertruck. You know, it's like you're getting the oohs and the ahs, but then later on you're like, that guy's an idiot.
Yeah, you're part of the beta team to figure it all the little problems out.
Yeah.
So.
If I had that kind of money to spend, I might ball out and get the GX 550 over trail.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it's like a very close kind of price point at the top levels of trim. There's always going to be those people that are only going to drive a retro vehicle. You know who they are. They probably have a garage full of Plymouth Prowlers. Their mom drives a PT Cruiser convertible. You know, their daughter has a Mini Cooper convertible. You know, they are just living in the past. And this is for them.
Modern refinement, but an old look and style and nostalgia.
You want a resto mod, but you don't want to spend resto mod money, so you bought a retro vehicle.
Or you don't, you need to be able to get to work. You don't want to like have that, carbureted motor not start for you in the morning.
Yeah.
But you want to look like you're old school.
Because you don't really know how to work on a car.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So let's start with what we hate about the new styling on the 250. This is the 1958 kind of bare bones base model.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think we all agree that this trim level looks the worst.
Yeah.
It looks like fake. Like the wheel offset seems extremely high on a narrow wheel, so they're pinched in the wheel well. When I see one of these going down the highway on like oncoming traffic, the wheels almost look like they're hubcaps on steel wheels. It looks like the Land Cruiser that you would win on The Price is Right.
It looks like a Toyota Corolla wheels or something, It's awful.
It's it's the Alibaba Land Cruiser.
Too much plastic. It's all gonna fade and age and look horrible in 5 years.
That whole front end is all plastic, and I like their chicken wire inspired front grille design.
Yeah, it's just I mean, obviously these can all be corrected, but in stock form, this is the ugliest version of this vehicle. Especially if you have like a contrasting color roof, like white. Just try a little bit harder on the ugliest trim level. Why not?
Yeah, right. And I think Toyota may had a bunch of leftover FJ Cruiser side mirrors because
they were building them in Saudi Arabia until like last year. They're like, we gotta use these. They don't look awful. They kind of like mirror maybe some of the kick up on the door. But it is really obviously kind of just seems exactly like an FJ Cruiser mirror. But yeah, definitely the ugliest one. If there was a Land Cruiser that made me want to hate the new design, it would be this trim level.
Because I think the base is offered in like black, silver, and white maybe. Like they give you no color choices on the base model.
I've seen that blue, that kind of like, Marine, Smurf, like porta potty-esque blue with the white roof. I mean, the joke with the FJ Cruiser world was like, all the blue FJ Cruisers were just like porta potties because that's what they kind of look like. I think that like if one of these had to look, like a porta potty, it would be blue with a white roof and in this trim level.
Yeah.
The next photo is it like stuck because it's got like passenger car tires, off-road use.
Yeah.
Not pictured is like all the punctures they got on this trail.
Yeah, not photoed is the broken CV after the spinning wheel touches the ground in about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So style-wise, you guys think the 550 is a better looking truck than the 200 or 250?
I kind of like the round headlight LC250 look. Like I like that look, but I do feel like the Lexus is going to be the better option.
I think what's interesting is like, you don't have to do a whole lot to the Lexus like you used to have to. Like the 460 used to have to like body saw off the awful bumpers and cladding and everything.
Yeah.
This, they kind of took care of some of that for you, and with maybe a basic lift and some tires, it really kind of like makes it look like a real new contender. I think the 250, you can do a similar thing too, but you kind of have to keep going with it to make it like look as cohesive as this, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Looking at this, there's an obvious kind of cut line right under that grill where that kind of lower bumper section is that people will probably utilize that when they're making off-road aftermarket bumpers.
Center bumpers.
So it looks like there's a really nice kind of obvious line to go there. Whereas on the Land Cruiser, there's maybe not such an obvious line unless you're doing kind of a center bumper cut out there for a center
or like complete
bumper
replacement.
Yeah.
I think the off-road trim levels of like the new GX and us seeing this Prado is probably Lexus's response to like realizing that, you know, their customer base here in the U.S. figured out that the 460 was the Prado, and seeing such engagement from the 460 crowd, maybe people that kind of like graduated out of a 4Runner. They probably didn't expect that level of response, and I think that this is kind of like, okay, game on. Like let's
I think
cater to the
Lexus
market.
previous with the GX 460, it was like a luxury step up on the 4Runner, but like that customer Lexus saw it didn't want to take it off road. It was a mall crawler, refined handling, road tires.
Yeah, I think the reason that we see this here is because of, people got brave with body saws on the 460s, and kind of, a market was born.
Yeah, the GXOR group and that concept from Lexus, it definitely got legs, and they worked their way into the design cues for the next. Would you venture to say that the Lexus option that's come to market is more adventurous looking and performing probably than the Land Rover, Range Rover?
People that are going to buy this would, in my opinion, would not ever consider a Land Rover because
people are usually
they either
buying...
had one and they lost financially on it, or they're planning to keep the vehicle for 10, 15 years, and if you're doing that with a Land Rover, you might as well give me all of your money and I can put it into this fire right now.
Yeah, the Land Rover Trust Fund to be able to maintain the vehicle over its lifespan.
That's why we all have second cars.
It's always the third.
They look good from far, but they are far from good.
Third or fourth owner is the one who modifies, not the first.
I think it's like actually the fifth if you look it up on the Land Rover world. In this photo, like these suddenly start to make sense because they're proportionally kind of designed with larger tires. The body lines start to kind of like make me want an LC250, more so than a GX. And I think that front kind of angled view all the way to the right of this LC250, you can really see, like if you squint, you can see FJ Cruiser there.
Totally. You see the square grille, you see the round headlights, you kind of see the squared off front end.
Yeah. You can kind of see the evolution there. But they look good built. They just look they all need to be built, basically.
Yeah. I think I got a few more pictures of here built. This was some rendering done by Descent. And that looks really killer, I think.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see, like a full width bumper, not just like the subtle, discreet covert kind of front bumper, winch bumpers, but something like this, could really change the front end completely. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of the
give it
market.
that built like FJ55 vibe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to take a little bit here to talk about the difference, or what you guys think about the new 4Runner, kind of how it kind of plays into the Toyota lineup now. The Land Cruiser is now more affordable, a little more off-road capable. So there's not a huge difference in price between 4Runner and Land Cruiser. Who is the new 4Runner really designed for?
I mean, I think the new 4Runner is designed for traditional 4Runner owners, but I think that if you have like a small family and you're comparing the $4,000 price difference for more room with a lot of the similar attributes, you're probably going to go for the LC250, I would bet.
This is like the young guy still wants like, the hot sporty option, right?
Yeah.
It goes like levels of responsibility. Then the LC250 is like, all right, you've had a child.
Yeah.
But you're still like on your way up. And then the GX is like, everybody needs to know that I'm killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing great at work. I just got promoted. And
then the 600's like, I don't go to work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, people work for me.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like with this sitting next to the LC250s on the lot, that these are going to be hard to sell.
Agreed, yeah.
It's kind of like a lot design-wise. It's like you're constantly wearing some crazy sneaker.
I think that this and the new Tacoma, there's too much going on with the body lines. There really is. I mean, like it's made to look muscular, but it's got a lot of angles. You know, I think, you know, if you get in an accident with one of these, the repair on that, it's going to be really tough.
They're just going to total it.
Toyota got like upset like all the Jeeps with angry eyes. And, whoever designed these was like really, really angry.
Yeah, it must have been a totally different design team that did the Land Cruiser. Like you can tell whoever did this also did the Tacoma.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Land Cruiser was.
I mean, I get why
totally
it
different.
exists. It has to be like exciting for their customer base is younger, and they want something that's like sporty.
Yeah, so that kind of sums up kind of our thoughts on it. I know we've been talking back and forth about maybe getting rid of our Bronco and kind of upgrading to one of these new platforms. So what's the most recent kind of thoughts on your guys' brain about kind of future vehicles here at MLO?
I don't know, Pete. I mean, I think you know, making the shift back to a Toyota Lexus platform makes sense after the Bronco, just because it's been a little while since we've had a Toyota in the shop.
Yeah. The Bronco's been a good truck. I mean, we've wheeled that thing hard, and it owes us nothing. But I think it makes sense probably to get into something like an LC250 or the GX 550 for something that, you know, the amount of miles that we put on it, and just wanting to kind of just show our take on, you know, a new platform and what we'd recommend.
So if you guys were to kind of pick the Land Cruiser 250 for your next shop truck, what would be the first, let's say, 3 modifications you would do to this? Let's call it 5. Let's call it 5 modifications.
I think we'd start with a trim level that had round headlights. I think we would do sliders. I think we'd do coilovers, maybe some Kings. And we would definitely have to do some bumpers. Yeah, some Evos, some bumpers. I think that'd be a good kind of starter pack to, you know, get it to be respectable looking. Maybe.
Yeah. And these things are pretty, even with a just 2-inch lift on there, it's pretty easy to fit 35s.
Yeah.
Would you kind of stop at 35s? Would you look to go beyond that?
I think like correcting the stance and then getting the tire to be a proportional size to the rest of the design of the vehicle will do wonders. I think we've seen that on some of the ones that have already been modified.
Yeah.
I think 35s are probably enough for a body style like this, especially with only an 8-speed transmission. I don't know if you're going to start to kind of run out of you know, gears and start to like lose some overdrive gears with too big of a tire without re-gearing. I think what's interesting is like these have been out for just long enough that we could scoop one up and kind of build it mostly in one fell swoop, as opposed to like when we got our Bronco, we had a first edition, we waited 18 months for it, you know, we kind of got it and then the aftermarket wasn't prepared, so we did what we could along the way. I think for the next build, we'll just kind of slingshot it and get it ripping all at once.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. So I think that kind of wraps things up. Kind of a little quick summary. I mean, we obviously really like the Land Cruiser, the new Land Cruiser, and the new GX. I'm not sure we can actually call it a real Land Cruiser. I think it kind of falls more into the Prado lineup, as we kind of discussed.
Light duty.
Prado R, Prado Retro.
Yeah, but kind of despite everything we talked about, that's definitely on our short list for kind of new vehicles we're thinking about to bring here at the shop. So we kind of want to turn it over to the audience here. We want to hear what you guys think we should get next. Join in on the debate whether you think this new Land Cruiser is actually a real Land Cruiser, or do you think it's kind of falls into the Prado line. What did you like about this? What didn't you like about it? We want to hear your kind of opinions down in the comments, and we're going to have a good time reading all those.
Tell us why we're wrong, and we'll go toe-to-toe with you in the comments.
Which platform do you like better, the Lexus or the LC250? Which do you think we should buy and modify next?
Why do you hate the 4Runner?
What do you hate most about the 4Runner?